back in the day, they did this a million times a day with no fucking safety goggles, right? This is also, I tried to teach myself how to nap flint, that's what it's called, flint napping. And it is so fucking difficult to make a stone axe. Anyone who looks at those in a museum and got bored have never tried making one. I guarantee you this. But then when I was doing that, I realized it is so much more difficult to make a stone axe than to have anal sex. And like, of course, people invented anal sex way before like perfecting this, you know. Then you get this nice little piece of flint that could definitely shave a hair or two off. But you see the sun coming through it? It's so pretty, no? I have always felt that there's a membrane between myself and others. And I remember as a kid being in a forest and knowing that elves existed. I thought it was so rude of them not to include me, because I want to go. I want to, like, if you're here, like, I want to be part of that. My primary interest is sort of like practical philosophy in a weird way. So it's not necessarily tied to a specific object or anything like that, but more, intrigue. One day, I mean, it sounds too good to be true, but it was literally like I was like working out in the high school gym, and then one day there was like a meeting down the hall about art, like an art school. And I was already making art at home without thinking it was called that, and then I was introduced to this notion that art could be a place of free research in a sense, and through different venues, I learned that like actual free thought was in art, you know, and that's not only a place where people could tolerate it, but that's a place where people gravitated towards it, because it had this notion that you can have an incredible thought, but if you don't make something proper that goes along with it, who cares? And vice versa, you know, that if you do something beautiful and incredible, that's interesting to look at, but it just kind of isn't really contributing any kind of intrigue, that also doesn't matter. And it needs at least those two elements. And somehow it just was a thrill that hasn't stopped since. My artistic process often starts with a rather simple idea, again, a kind of clash. People propose me that I work in a lot of different mediums, and I sort of, you know, sit there and nod and go, yeah, sure. But to me, it really, honestly, truly is all one big thing. Like, we humans are so extremely young. We're only like 2 million years into being called Homo sapiens, you know? Anything and everything we do with our hands is gonna be part of the same tradition. So to me, as long as you in the end can feel that I have digested something, then it doesn't really matter to me if it was 3D printed or, gathered in the forest. Or these things are important in terms of meaning and semiotics, but not from the point of view of my hand, you know? I have these bows. I made this little bow that kind of looks like a moth. I think I want to make some more and almost make them feel like swollen muscles on an outfit. Because there's something simultaneously so, it's like so funny how it, you know, it's graffiti on fabric, but yet it feels so old. It's really like someone in the 80s wanted to be, or 90s wanted to be so fashion forward, and somehow now it feels even more aged than something from the 1700s. I think a lot of my work, especially when it pertains to materials, is hinging on this idea of not even ambiguity, but multiguity. That there's not just a single version of something, but always many. And it sounds, I guess it might sound as if I'm trying to be obfuscative or intentionally slippery or something like that. And that's not the point. The point is that life will never be a singular experience. Like, not even for me. So why would it be for everyone else? Why would something that we are all sharing be more simplistic than what I'm feeling, you know? So in that way, I think that when I use a wooden stump or a hammer-formed sheet of metal, I know why I'm doing it to start out, but I'm also discovering as I go all the other things it can also mean. But I'm just constantly driven by this instinct, this need, this want to see it happen. I think art is about manifesting hunches in a certain sense, that it's about trying to be at least a little bit convinced that you might be onto something right now. So if you completely just sit there and say, I'm gonna just propose things, I'm gonna just ask questions, that is gonna frustrate both you and whoever is looking at your art, you know? Yeah, and an expression has to come from somewhere, right? It can't just go dissipate into the air. It needs to come from something, from someone who is convinced, at least today, that things might be a little bit this way. And keeping uncertainty within a certain kind of certainty. Oh my God, this fabric is perfect for this shit. It really does have this floral quality to it, huh? Fuck me, no? A little mothy bow? Like, we're so used to doing these kind of things about like art when it's finished, but if you just look at these two, these are not like artworks, right? They're just maybe parts of some artwork at some point, but just that little incremental thickness in the fabric makes it so voluminous. There's no material keeping this sturdy, but it looks like it. The shape is completely different. This is so angular in that, and here's been so. My sculptures that are based on folkloric figures or mythological figures or local history or things like that, they're sort of manifest of very much this encounter between something that is perceived to be natural and something that is perceived to be artificial. The clothing that meets a branch or whatever. This encounter, these two membranes touching, is what hopefully creates the sensation in a viewer that something has a natural state that has been altered by something else. So with the anthropomorphic form that the sculptures we're talking about take, I am awarded a certain amount of wiggle room to sort of play with these things, being inspired by the shared imagination of a sort of gaseous cloud of people, be it 10 people from a village or hundreds of thousands of people in an area of the world. This collective imagination that mythology and folklore and local history is an incredible pool of sort of gossip-like knowledge about something. Nothing is more potent than a good story, you know? And just in the same way, gossip is a beautiful art form that basically, historically, turns out to be mythology or lore or things like that. Thinking specifically about these folklorically inspired, mythologically inspired sculptures, I wanted them to have the density of real people in terms of these little tells, these sort of tip of the iceberg hints to who they are, but without a big sign next to them that explains exactly why everything is there. So much like I don't have a big sign next to me that says he wore 2 shirts today because he thought one wasn't enough or whatever. In that way, my sculptures, these sculptures, they don't have all the information that they hold listed right next to them. And that hopefully gives this sensation of a much more lively existence, a much more lively sort of being standing there in front of you that you can actually encounter as equals. They're standing with their feet on the gallery floor just as you are, and they're also wearing a jacket because it's fucking cold. But underneath they might have a little negligee because they're gonna go on a date later, or and we don't know that. They have as much hidden icebergy things going on as we do. I did these bows, but I thought, what if I try to make a pair of pants that not only had them as an extra, as an added little element, but that seemed to be about the bow. So when I sewed the pants, I thought, first of all, this would be a opulent position for a bow. A little like too lewd almost, a little nasty. But also, by virtue, this is a placement that, I don't know, H&M wouldn't choose, I guess. And of course, this is about this ended up being quote unquote just a garment. And I think they're nice or whatever, but I also just became still frustrated with how, no matter how much I tried to make the bow the main character of something, it was always about the fucking pants. I spent so long trying to make something that would point just to the bow, and I still failed. This is still a pair of pants with a bow on it. How the fuck do I get out of that loop, right? And that, in a weird way, became this hegemony in my head of wait, I think I'm an accoutrement to society, kind of. I think I feel like I think a lot of non-normative people, or at least in a lot of ways I'm not normative, I feel embroidered upon the world rather than an intrinsic part of it. So it became impossible not to identify with the bow and not feel like, just like the day of the bow never comes no matter what pants I make, mine doesn't come either, To be a little cheesy, maybe I will just reference Agamben in that if you are too steeped in your own time, you can't really see it. And thus, I think also as a queer person, I very quickly felt like, an anthropologist going to school with a bunch of kids, observing them. There was a very clear distinction between me and everyone else. So I zoomed out and looked at the world from afar, and thus it became easier for me to keep walking that path of parallel existence. I mean, it sounds a little sad now, but I'm thankful for it, I was very attracted to things that were temporally parallel. So not to sit there and look at history and go, ooh, I love that, that's so old and that's great. But exactly looking at things and going, oh, I relate to this monk in this way. I wouldn't want to be a monk in medieval times, but I think about, maybe living with a bunch of dudes who like knowledge and, you know, not being forced to marry a woman. That sounds kind of nice, those aspects of it, right? So that's a parallel temporal aspect to what my life is today, right? Certain little things I can pick and choose. A series of works that I've been working on for a while is, I guess, elastically called Homo Homo, which, you know, has the double sense of both meaning hinting to a homosexual person, but also it means something akin to same. I think the Homo Homo series was a way for me to connect to this idea that life is longer, that life is bigger than both me, but also what is around me, also the past 10 years. But as a gay man, I felt very estranged from this like reproductive cycle that a lot of natural history was about. I couldn't imagine what Neanderthal Rasmus would be like because it wasn't anywhere to be found. And, you know, I wasn't sitting there going like, represent it for me, world, please, I need it. But it just prompted me to think that there are so many moments right next to the ones that make sense for a scientist to deal with, that very much makes sense for an artist to deal with, right? I depicted them in these hypersexualized versions. Also, I, from a very early age, was very inspired by someone from Finland. And I wanted that clash to happen as well, like the hypersexualized drawings of Tom of Finland with this kind of scientific depiction of natural history. I thought that was a very fertile ground to stand on, but then I also kind of shattered the egg and found a lot more stuff going on inside. So if you just have them hugging or making art or things like this that are of course speculative in nature, but again extremely evident once you just sort of think about it. I think if I give the bow some pants, I think I set it free in a way. Does that sound stupid? A little bit. I think for me, in essence, I mean, I can think of some of the earliest work that I encountered as like contemporary art. I understood that, like, in essence, in its like atom quality, for me, at least personally, the work is a fleshy thought and a title. That instinct. People looking for a title is the instinct of saying, I want to meet this thing at the terms that this thing wants to meet me at. I want to greet it by asking it, what are you called? It's such a generous move by an observer, right? By a spectator. So I think the most generous thing you can do as an artist is to reward that curiosity. When the eyes go to the little list or to the little sign or wherever the title is present, no shade, but like untitled, it's a rejection in a sense. I think a big joy of mine is when people get that sensation that what I've made is already present in their head in a natural state almost, because that means that they feel like they're also a part of whatever it is I made, which means that I'm slightly more connected to the rest of the world than I was before, you know? For me, art making is about greedily and like with so much longing, just wanting to be slightly closer to the rest of humanity. It is such a blessing to be alive, but it's also this weird cursed to be an individual, you know? I just want to dissolve myself and distribute myself amongst everyone around. But at the same time, the only way I can enact all these things is by being an individual. Even the word individual is like so lonely and haunting, you know? And then being an artist has, like, it adds to this word individual a capability to connect to others, a necessity for me. If I just make a sculpture and put it in an empty room by itself, then, you know, did I even make art? It's about connecting to other people with your hands and your head and your heart, you know? And that is such a, that's what I want. Oh, come on. That's adorable. But I mean, it's definitely also then you get little presents. All of a sudden, these are like little tiny feet. No? That's such a, that has a lot of presence. I didn't think about the feet. It can basically stand on its own almost, just from the strength of the pants. But I think, okay, what's going to be really funny to see is this together. That looks freaky, huh?